two empires, one from the west, young and hungry for glory, one from the east, ancient and seemingly invincible. The Persian Empire had stood for over 2 centuries, ruling half the known world with unmatched power. Then came a 20-year-old Macedonian king with a burning desire for revenge and immortality. His name was Alexander. He crossed into Asia with a small army and massive ambition. What followed was the greatest clash of civilizations the ancient world had ever witnessed. This is the story of how Alexander the Great destroyed the mighty Persian Empire forever. This is the battle that changed the world. The year was 336 BC. The Achaemenid Persian Empire was the undisputed superpower of the ancient world. It stretched from Egypt to India, from the Black Sea to the Arabian Desert. Over 50 million people lived under Persian rule. The empire possessed vast wealth, endless resources, and an army numbering in the hundreds of thousands. Its king, Darius III, sat on the throne built by Cyrus the Great himself. To most of the world, Persia seemed eternal and unshakable. No one imagined it could ever fall. The great empire appeared destined to rule forever. But destiny had other plans waiting. Meanwhile, far to the west in Macedonia, a different story was unfolding. King Philip II had just been assassinated at his daughter's wedding. His son, Alexander, was only 20 years old when he inherited the throne, but Philip had left his son 2 crucial gifts: the most disciplined army in the world and a burning hatred for Persia. Philip had dreamed of conquering Persia to avenge the Persian invasions of Greece generations earlier. Now that dream passed to his young, untested son, and Alexander intended to make it reality. The boy king would soon become history's greatest conqueror. In 334 BC, Alexander crossed the Hellespont into Asia with just 35,000 men. His first major battle came at the Granicus River. Persian commanders waited with a large force on the opposite bank. They held the high ground. It looks like a death trap. But Alexander didn't hesitate. He personally led the charge, plunging into the river with his cavalry. In the brutal fighting, Alexander was nearly killed. A Persian axe cracked his helmet, but his bodyguards saved him at the last moment. The Persians broke and fled in chaos. Alexander's legendary invasion had officially begun with blood and victory. After Granicus, Alexander marched through Asia Minor, liberating Greek cities from Persian control. In the city of Gordium, he encountered a famous legend: an ancient knot tied to a chariot so complex that no one could untie it. Prophecy said whoever undid the Gordian Knot would rule all of Asia. Commanders had tried for centuries and failed. Alexander looked at the knot carefully. Then he drew his sword and cut it in half with a single stroke. He didn't play by old rules. He made his own. The message was clear to everyone watching. Asia would be his. In 3033 BC, Alexander finally faced the Persian king himself. Darius III assembled a massive army and marched to crush the Macedonian invader. They met at Issus, a narrow coastal plain. Darius commanded perhaps 100,000 men. Alexander had only 40,000. But the narrow battlefield negated Persia's numerical advantage. Alexander personally led his cavalry in a charge straight at Darius's position. The Persian king, seeing Alexander cutting through his guards like a storm, panicked completely. Darius fled the battlefield in his chariot, abandoning his army, his family, and his honor. The great king ran like a coward. After Issus, Alexander captured Darius's camp. Inside, he found the Persian king's mother, wife, and children abandoned. He found treasure beyond imagination: gold, jewels, silks, and luxuries the Macedonians had never seen before. When Alexander entered Darius's royal tent and saw the golden bath and lavish decorations, he remarked, "So this is what it means to be a king." He treated the Persian royal family with complete respect and honor. This won him propaganda points throughout the empire. Darius had fled like a coward. Alexander showed mercy like a true king. The contrast was absolutely devastating to Persian morale. Next, Alexander turned south toward Egypt. But the island city of Tyre refused to surrender. Protected by sea and massive walls, Tyre had never been conquered. Most commanders would have bypassed it. Not Alexander. He decided to build a causeway from the mainland to the island. It took 7 brutal months. The Tyrians fought desperately, destroying his siege engines with fire ships. But Alexander was relentless. When his causeway finally reached the island, he breached the walls. Tyre fell completely. 8,000 defenders were executed without mercy. 30,000 were sold into slavery. Alexander had made his terrifying point perfectly clear. Resistance was futile. After Tyre's destruction, Egypt surrendered without a fight. The Egyptians hated their Persian overlords and welcomed Alexander as a liberator. He traveled to the desert oracle at Siwa, where priests declared him the son of god Amun-Ra. Whether Alexander believed it or used it politically remains unknown. His men started to wonder about their commander. He founded the city of Alexandria, which would become one of the greatest cities of the ancient world. But his ambition wasn't satisfied yet. Darius still lived somewhere in the east. Persia still stood unconquered. The war was far from over. The final battle awaited. In 331 BC, Darius made his final stand. He chose the battlefield carefully, the plains of Gaugamela, flat and wide, perfect for his massive army. He assembled perhaps 250,000 men, including scythe chariots and war elephants. This was Persia's full might. Alexander commanded only 50,000, outnumbered 5 to 1. The night before battle, Alexander slept soundly while his officers worried. When asked why, he said, "Before, I had to chase Darius. Now he's standing still." At dawn, the battle for the Persian Empire began. Everything would be decided by nightfall. There was no turning back now. The battle began with chaos. Persian chariots charged. The Macedonian phalanx opened corridors, letting them pass through harmlessly, then closed ranks. Persian cavalry attacked the flanks. Alexander waited and watched carefully. Then he saw it, a gap in the Persian line. Without hesitation, Alexander formed a wedge with his cavalry and charged directly at Darius. The Macedonians smashed through the Persian center. Darius, seeing Alexander coming like death itself, panicked once more. He fled again. The Persian army, seeing their king abandon them for the second time, collapsed completely. The battle became a massacre. The Persian Empire died at Gaugamela. After Gaugamela, Alexander marched unopposed into the heart of Persia. City after city surrendered. Then he reached Persepolis, the ceremonial capital built by Darius the Great, the jewel of the Persian Empire. For months, Alexander stayed there, enjoying its treasures. Then one night, during a drunken celebration, Persepolis was set ablaze. Some say it was deliberate revenge for Persia burning Athens generations earlier. Others say it was an accident. Either way, the greatest palace complex in the ancient world burned to the ground. 200 years of Persian glory reduced to ashes in a single night. The destruction was complete. Darius fled east, hoping to raise another army. But his own nobles had lost faith completely. They saw him as a coward who had abandoned them twice. Led by Bessus, satrap of Bactria, they conspired against their own king. When Alexander's forces drew close, Bessus and his conspirators stabbed Darius and left him dying on the roadside. Alexander found the Persian king in his final moments. According to legend, Alexander covered Darius with his own cloak and promised to avenge his murder. The last Achaemenid emperor died not in glory, but betrayed by his own men. The Persian Empire was finished, but destroying Persia changed Alexander forever. He began wearing Persian royal robes. He adopted Persian ceremonies, demanding his Macedonian officers bow before him like Persian subjects. He married Roxana, a Persian princess. His companions were horrified. They had come to destroy Persia, not become Persian. Tensions grew dangerously. Alexander executed several officers for conspiracy, including his friend Clitus, whom he killed in a drunken rage. The young Macedonian king who crossed into Asia was gone. In his place stood someone Eastern, someone paranoid, someone isolated from his own people. He had conquered Persia, but Persia had also conquered him. In just 11 years, Alexander destroyed an empire that had stood for over 2 centuries. He spread Greek culture from Egypt to India, creating the Hellenistic world. Greek became the common language of the East, but the cost was staggering. The Persian Empire, which had preserved peace and respected diverse cultures, was shattered forever. Millions died. Ancient cities burned. Alexander himself died just 8 years later at 32. His empire fragmented immediately. He conquered the world but couldn't hold it. This was the battle that changed everything. the end of Persia, the beginning of the Greek Age. This is Historiopedia.